Hi, everybody. This is S.J. Thomason with Christian-Apologist.com, and I am here right now with Andrew Stratelates, and we're going to discuss some interesting topics like Christianity and if it's possible for people in different denominations to all go to heaven, or if only one denomination is going to be able to go to heaven, from what the Bible says and from what we know. And so, Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Stratelates. Right now I'm at Twitter because I'm sort of in between homes for long-form conversations, but I'm a Stratelates at Twitter. I'm a traditional Anglican and a friend of SJ, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And so, and I noticed you also have a philosopher's background, don't you?
Yeah, all of that's amateur stuff. I took like 2 college-level courses in it, but it's a hobby of mine. So
okay, yeah, no, you do a good job. I think it was pretty amusing when you got on there and you started discussing. The question was on abortion and people saying that abortion was equivalent to slavery, and then you just got in there today and sort of dealt a couple of death blows to some of those arguments that person was making.
Yeah, and the key thing was consent to sex, whether or not that's consent to pregnancy or to creating a new life, and basically, I would say that sex always takes the risk or the possibility of new life, and that's why one of the reasons why you should only have sex with people you're married to is because it can produce children, and one of the purposes of marriage is to create the right environment for the raising of children. Because one of the arguments for abortion is, well, we can disconnect sex entirely from having children, and I don't think you can do that. There are things you can do to regulate that connection, but that connection always exists.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's very important, and it's one of those things in our society that one of the reasons I've been reading Francis Fukuyama's book on identity, and he was pointing out that one of the reasons why we've been seeing so much unhappiness and intolerance and a lot of these different things going on in society is because there's a divide going on between the wealthy or even the middle class in some cases and some of the working class, middle class members, and a lot of them feel like they're disenfranchised. And I'm getting into that because the working class, middle class, if you look at no matter what the race is, it could be white, black, or another race, the levels of families right now that are single parent families is very high in the working class and the underclass. And so there's that issue that's pretty serious.
Yeah, a really shocking graph that I saw is the number of children per woman at different incomes, and broadly what you'd consider the middle class, which is basically people who don't receive government assistance but also need to work for a living, have less than replacement levels of fertility, while those who do receive government subsidies or people that are independently wealthy, they have very high fertility rates of like 6 to 8 children per woman.
Wow.
So it's really shocking that basically the working or middle class, at least in America and the West, is not forming families and reproducing anymore. Only the very wealthy and the very poor are.
Yeah. Wow. That's very interesting and not good. That doesn't sound like a good trend in society at all. And so what I wanted to do today also is to talk a little bit about the differences between the Christian beliefs, the different denominations. And so to introduce this, I was going to show people a thread that I was on Twitter. Does that sound like a good deal?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm going to show you guys this. It's actually kind of a hilarious thread, so you guys will get a good kick out of it. Let me just go find it really quick. Application, Chrome, where is it? There it is. Psi 10, Bruggencate. Yes, it's all about Psi. Can you see this right now?
Yes, I can.
So I did a stream, and I've noticed this trend that whenever I mention Catholics, I feel like a lot of people come after me and they want to basically say that Catholicism is equivalent to Satanism and other beliefs like that. And so I get this little thing here. So I've noticed some people here are very hostile to Catholics or Catholic ideas and beliefs. Why? I was raised as a Catholic and I'm now a Baptist. My church doesn't beat up on the Catholics. Which ones do? So I was curious. And so then Psi 10 Bruggencate, who is a very vocal, I believe, Reformed Calvinist. I think that's what he is. He says, because according to the Council of Trent, Canon 9, those who believe in salvation by faith in Christ alone are anathema. And he corrected the spelling of that a little later. But then he said the Catholic Church and those who support them are hostile to the gospel. Now, I disagree with that completely. And so somebody tagged in this Trent Horn person, and Trent Horn is a Catholic, and Trent Horn says, short answer, no. More complete answer. See this article by my friend Jimmy Akin, which deals with how Catholics can believe in salvation by faith alone, depending on what you mean by faith, and why Canon 9 doesn't apply to most Protestants today. Okay, so he's got this article, which I didn't read yet, I have to admit. And Cy responds, gobbledygook. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states that meritorious works are needed for salvation. So Trent goes back. The Bible says we must work out our salvation, Philippians 2:12, and are not saved by faith alone, James 2:24. And saved people can forfeit their salvation and be lost, Hebrews 10:29, Romans 11:22, and Galatians 5:4. I'd be happy to send you my book, The Case for Catholicism, for more on these topics. All right, and so then Cy says, need I say more? And they went back and forth a little bit. I won't read every single thing. And then I put down here, I get Jeffrey Cawthorn, who is an atheist. He says, two Christians are fighting about how to get into heaven based on their individual interpretations of Scripture. And I am about to make a fool of myself. Both of you are doomed. You haven't accepted Squatch as your Lord and Savior. So I wrote, we agree on the core tenets of Jesus' birth from a virgin and his resurrection. The devil is in the details, which is why I ignore them when discussing these issues with other Christians. And then he writes, with such an absurd view, you have no basis for avoiding the false gospel Paul warns us of in Galatians 1:8. This is precisely why you are dangerous. I mean, I'm dangerous now, Andrew.
Incredibly dangerous. Let me look at Galatians 1:8. But basically, the key issue with this one, and I'm an Anglican, and the good way to describe the Anglicans like me is we're lowercase p Protestants, where we were formed roughly in the Reformation, and we think that the Roman Catholic hierarchy got a few things wrong. And got a few more things wrong with Vatican I and Vatican II. But basically we're not Roman Catholic, and we're happy to correct them when we think they're wrong. So basically the key thing here is the definition of what faith is. Roman Catholics, especially in the Reformation, have a tendency to define faith in a narrow sense of like intellectual assent to the proposition that God is trustworthy. While Protestants tend to look at it as a broader thing of not only is it this intellectual assent, but it is cultivating a loving relationship where we are obedient to God. And the actual modern Lutherans and Roman Catholics have detailed this out in a large document that's on the Vatican website. And basically, one of the key arguments in the Reformation was due to the semantic difference of how you define faith, either narrowly or broadly. And that's what Trent was talking about, is that Canon 9 of the Council of Trent says that if you claim that all you need is intellectual assent to get into heaven, that is not the sufficient condition, and that is very, very wrong. Anathema is basically the highest level of condemnation that the Roman Catholic Church can give. But that's sort of the key thing is how do you define faith? And there are some other subtleties too, right? Where the ontology can be a little bit different, or how we break things up. Roman Catholics also tend to look at justification and sanctification as broadly the same thing, so that there's not a very strong distinction. While things that come out of the Reformation will make a stronger distinction between justification and sanctification, right? That justification is what comes from Christ on the cross, and that's what gets our punishment absolved or case dismissed, so to speak. But after that is the process of sanctification, which is how we grow in spiritual virtues and grace in God. And that's the other issue too, is that Roman Catholics don't make that distinction as strongly.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing to keep in mind is what is necessary versus sufficient to get into heaven, right, or to be saved. In a very real way, I think we don't know what is the absolute necessary condition, because God is very merciful and will bend the rules as much as he can. But denominations tend to make much stronger claims on what's sufficient, right? Roman Catholics will say, if you're in the Roman Catholic Church and you follow these things, that is sufficient to be saved. What's necessary might be narrower than that. And I believe they, at least modern Roman Catholics, tend to be sort of agnostic on what that narrower case is.
Yeah, and I can say that I just remember what we did as a Roman Catholic when I was raised. The big thing was going to confession. And so the idea was, if you go to confession, you say, I confess to Father all my sins, and you start naming whatever your sins are. And then he says, okay, what you need to do is say like 10 Hail Marys and an Our Father, and your sins are forgiven. And so I'd go home and I'd get my rosary out and I say the 10 Hail Marys and the Our Father, and then I was supposedly sin-free. And so I felt pretty good about that at the end of that. But then now I switched over where the Baptists say that you're supposed to commune directly with God and Jesus, and have those kind of conversations and prayers, and not involve this middle person, this middle intercessory of the priest. And so that was one way that it's a little different. But I can say, from growing up in it, kind of building on what you're saying, Catholicism definitely is very works-based. And that is, I think that was Martin Luther's biggest gripe about it. And so I think that Catholics today have realized, well, wait a second, there are some really specific passages about the value of faith. But I believe that you have faith. That's the first step. It's kind of like when Jesus told the fishermen to throw the nest to cast the nest out on the other side of the boat, and that they were going to catch a lot of fish. They had to have that faith, that initial trust, and they did. So they cast the net out and they caught in abundance, and they brought it in. Once you have the faith and you give faith, and God opens the doors to you and lets you see the reality of Christianity, the next thing is you'll notice that your works end up coming out of your faith. And so you do end up trying to live more like God, trying to be more like Jesus, but it's never going to be enough. Like, you can't work your way to heaven. You have to, there has to be this faith that your works are just, like they say, they'll know them by their fruits. So that's going to come from the faith, but it's not enough itself for salvation. It comes from our salvation.
Yeah, and that's sort of the bone of contention, or the tendency, right? And if you look at the detailed Catholic theology for it, it's very similar to what you just described of works coming out of faith. Part of the issue is that often is not articulated very well, at least in people who are Roman Catholics and not interested in theology, or at least that's been my experience. So it's a lot closer than you might think at first. Mm-hmm. And the other sort of interest, yeah, and then we talk about, there are a multitude of things, right? One is, what is the absolute bare minimum to be saved? Another one is, what's the safest way to be saved, right? And then the third one is, what does it mean to have a functioning church, and how should we act temporally and in worship and all these other things as Christians in the world? And mm-hmm. these are all questions that vary depending on denomination.
Yeah, and they're important questions. It's definitely important. It's definitely, obviously, salvation worthy. But I always still get back to the idea. Jesus opens people's eyes, and the very first Christians didn't even have a Bible like we have, and they still believed, and they're still so there. And there could be Christians maybe in some remote areas of the world that don't have access to a Bible. don't have all that kind of stuff. Look at Nathan's here. Look at him. Is that V? Hey, V. Oh, they're back together. She's back from. Andrew, do you know Nathan and V?
I don't believe so.
Okay, hi. She's back from Spain. They look like they're having a really fun time.
She's giving me coronavirus, SJ.
You brought the coronavirus with you, V?
The super spreader.
No, I'm not.
Oh, that's classic. So Nathan is he's been on my channel a bunch of other times, and Andrew is an Anglican. He was just talking a little bit about if people in all these different Christian denominations, if it's possible for all of them, if we can have multiple doors to get to heaven. And so that's our big topic. But it's always good to see you guys. It's great that V is back and you're without coronavirus. It sounds like, because I don't hear coughing.
Well, she's got a bit of a flu symptoms, so we're waiting results of tests. But I mean, if we have got it, we're obviously in the percentage of people that don't have bad issues with it or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the worst way of describing it ever. But
yeah, well, I think most people do. My son recovered really quickly, actually. He had a very bad cough for about 3 days, and then it was just, they didn't give him any specific medicine or anything. It just went away, luckily. And so that was always good. So good. So I've got, anyway, Andrew and Nathan is now an agnostic. He was a Christian, but Pine Creek did him in. Andrew, have you heard of Pine Creek Doug? I have not. Oh, you haven't? Wow. Yeah, he's got this channel, and he's actually got a pretty big following, Pine Creek Doug, on YouTube. And he is a, like, what they call street epistemologist. At least I would call him that, because what he does is he starts asking these questions. But the way he frames these questions is in a way that you're going to answer it in a way that you don't feel comfortable with. Like, he's figured out the question to ask people that you're going to answer it. So he's pre-planned your answers.
Yeah, it's a form of Socratic questioning. I really dislike it. I don't think it adds the value that they claim it does, but being an agnostic as a young person is expected in my tradition. So you are par for the course at this point in your life.
The power of Satan, actually, with his questioning. He explicitly makes that clear at the start, that he's under the power of Satan and he's trying to lead you to hell. So
he does say that? I don't think I've heard him say that.
Yeah, he says it all the time. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I have to admit, I've only listened to a couple of it.
Wow. Well, that makes it very easy. Then you dismiss everything he says.
then you at least know what his motivations are, right?
Yeah, he's just being clear up front, and then yeah, you can go from there.
One thing that I found really odd with him is something that actually I also found odd with Seth Andrews. Is Seth Andrews stood up, and he kind of bragged about it. He stood up in at a public place. I think it was at some sort of a conference or something like that, some venue with a whole bunch of atheists there. And he gets onto the stage and he says he publicly asked Satan to come into his heart. And then he felt like nothing happened and all this kind of stuff. And he thought that was so funny that he did that. And he also thought it was amusing that a lot of the atheists kind of cringed when he did that, because he said their Christian roots are still speaking through them. They can still have this fear of Satan. And I thought to myself, why in the world would he do that and then brag about it? What is with this? I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Well, in some sense, he is being more authentically atheistic than they are, right? Because he believes that it's all bullshit. And if it's all bullshit, he can take the risk to do it, right? He is putting his money where his mouth is. The problem is if it's not bullshit, right? So it's actually showing a sort of trust or confidence in your position, right? If you're 100% confident the gun isn't loaded and you put it to your head and shoot it, that is showing that you're very confident. But the issue is if you're wrong, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing is a lot of these atheists, especially new atheists, are really agnostics, right? And they engage in a little bit of conflation to make it easier to defend, and not claiming the names of spiritual powers if you're just an agnostic seems an entirely reasonable position to take, right? Of, I don't know if the spiritual world exists, but if it does, I'm not going to, mess around with it. I'm not sure if the gun is loaded, therefore I'm not going to point it at my own head.
Yeah, it's dangerous stuff. I mean, I'm speaking from a neighborhood where it's really, really sad thing happened about, I think it was last Christmas, right around last Christmas. These young boys, my son's age, exactly one of my son's age, were playing in this house. The dad wasn't home, the mom wasn't home, but the dad had a gun locked in his bedroom, and he's a cop. And the kids somehow went into the bedroom and got the gun and started playing around with it, thinking it wasn't loaded. Well, one went and pointed it at the back of another kid's head and pulled the trigger, and that little boy's no longer with us, which is probably the most horrific thing that could possibly happen in our neighborhood, and to anybody, to parents on both sides, everyone involved. It was horrible. So, not to bring up such a sad, horrible thing, but the gun, I mean, guns are really dangerous. I just wish nobody had them.
Yeah, well, to bring it back to the epistemic point, right? Some of these things are so significant, even if you are uncertain, you should act as though the worst case is there, right? And so for the atheist, the worst possible case is that Satan is real. And therefore, calling upon Satan is probably not the right thing to do. From a risk mitigation perspective.
I think that kind of reminds me of something Jordan Peterson said. I actually listened to Jordan Peterson talking to Baron, what's his name? The famous Baron, the Christian guy. I forget his last name.
Bishop Robert Barron?
Yeah. Bishop Barron. That's right. So I was listening to those two talking to each other, and I heard Jordan says, when everyone asks Jordan if he believes in God, Jordan gives this really, really long answer that he was much more forthcoming during the conversation with Bishop Barron, because in that one, actually what he said was, he essentially said he doesn't feel like he's worthy of God. If you do believe in God, he doesn't think that he could live up to what the Christian ideals and the Christian God would want of him. And so therefore he's still putting off believing or accepting God. And so I think that's kind of interesting that he does that. And so, because I feel like nobody is worthy of the Christian God. We're all just like dirty rags as far as he's concerned. And we try to do well, but we don't. We all fall short. So, oh yeah, Digital Hammurabi's in here wondering, why could I have someone like Digital Gnosis on my channel?
And have you seen what I've changed my name to? Because Josh keeps running from me, SJ. He's got these presuppositions that he can't justify. Is completely unjust. He keeps confusing the good slavery with the bad slavery. So what he keeps saying that the good slavery was bad slavery, right? But no, that's the good slavery. Like, how can he be so stupid? And he just keeps running from me. Like,
it's funny. Now he's written a book on slavery. I actually listened to it. His book actually talks a lot about the ancient Near East and the context, and it's a good book. And he's got the knowledge because that's his field. He studied Assyrians and Assyriology, so I think he's got some expertise in those areas. But the one thing I disagree is just that word. People always want to talk about condoning versus tolerating or endorsing, and I would say that God tolerated slavery, didn't endorse it. But of course, we can go back and forth for at least 10 hours on that.
But if he did, it was the good slavery. And Josh wants to say it's the bad slavery, and Josh is wrong.
Yeah, to put it in other words, American-style racial-based slavery is very different than anything you'd see in the classical world. And much, much worse and much less just.
I bet you don't even know about the word abed, right? I bet, Josh, you even know about the word abed, Josh. Like, stop running, bro.
Josh just running from you. He is afraid of you. Now I want to say welcome to Brenda. Also, Brenda's just joined the chat. Brenda's been in here. I think this is her third time on my channel. So welcome, Brenda. I can't even count the number of times Digital and Andrew have been on here. So but I do recall.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nice seeing you. So Digital Hammurabi says he's always wrong. So I guess you got him to say something there. Digital Gnosis.
That was followed by a lull. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it's nice seeing you.
So that's called irony. It means he isn't really saying that.
Mhm.
So when you say that he's saying that, you're lying.
Ah,
Brenda, there's a lot of levels going on here.
there's
So
actually a lot of stuff because these two have this interaction going back and forth on Twitter that I've been following a little bit. They're each accusing the other. They're kind of joking around. Actually, the whole thing is joking around.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, he's
come in with the
what
you
did
know
you-
come in pointing a gun to SJ's head there a bit, Brenda.
So what's the subject today?
So we were talking about what I was talking about yesterday. I'm kind of building from today again, because yesterday I decided to try to explicate some of the differences between two different Christian faiths that I've experienced. So I've experienced Catholicism, actually Lutheran. I didn't talk about that one as much. Catholicism, Lutheran, and Baptist, those different faiths. And so I was talking about kind of very big differences between Catholic and Baptist beliefs. And then I got on Twitter and I noticed whenever I mentioned anybody who's Catholic, like Bishop Barron, or if I mentioned a few other people, Matt Fradd is I think another big Catholic, but when I mention them, I noticed I kind of get attacked by people like Saitan Bruggencate. And so I showed everybody my Twitter feed with Saitan on there, basically telling me that I'm dangerous because of what I say.
Well, you probably are dangerous. You probably are dangerous. You probably are.
So, okay, I'm just, but you think I'm dangerous in different ways than Saitan thinks I'm dangerous.
No, I think you're dissembling.
Dissembling. So, okay, I'm just.
What's going on?
Okay, no, I think she had. Okay.
I don't know what that was. That wasn't me. I don't think.
Okay, no worries. It's. Oh wait, I see somebody else is in the group here. Who is going to be the
That's what
mystery
it was.
person? Here we go. Hello, Craig.
Oh, that's Craig
Hey.
Reed.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, good. Because I'm in the car. I get ousted to the car when my wife is in the kitchen eating. I have to go to the car to participate. And sometimes
That's where men belong.
Yes, in the car. That's in our marriage. You go to the car.
You've been taken out. Yeah. Well, what does it say? A happy wife is a happy life.
Yes. It
So
says this
you're
is
happy.
how you have a happy marriage. Josh will second this. Yes, dear. Go to the car, dear. Of course, dear. I would love to do that.
I want to say thank you to John, Parables of Jesus Christ, for his very generous super chat. Thank you so much. And he says, "Happy Thanksgiving from Canada." I didn't even know it's Thanksgiving in Canada, so that's wonderful.
Why did you put the 99 cents on there? Is that just like a weird conversion?
Canada gives thanks for not being America.
Canada, yeah, I was actually watching an interaction between Renevelation, because he tagged me into a couple of things today, and somebody was saying something like they were talking about the leaders between Canada, Germany, and the United States, and the person who was Canadian was saying the same thing that Brenda just said. I'm so glad it's not America or something like that. And I thought, I like America. I think it's a great place.
They just say that because they know they have no culture and just borrow American culture.
Uh-oh, if we have any Canadians, they're not going to be happy about that. Any Canadians? Brenda, I don't know where you're from, but.
I'm from Minnesota, so technically we are extreme South Canada.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think you did tell me that you're from Minnesota. That's right. So yeah. So it's always. So anyway, we're talking about some different Christian denominations as sort of one of the things, and I wanted to see also if I could get your input on that. It could be coming from anybody here, but if you want to just talk about what are your experiences with the Christian church, or with Christians, or just different denominations. If those of you who aren't Christians, I know there's two of you here. If there were one of the denominations that you would find the most interesting, I would like to hear which one that would be. If you were going to possibly think about being a Christian. I'm just curious to know what your perceptions are of these different denominations.
I'll let other people go first.
What was the thing you were talking about yesterday with the Catholicism? That is that generally in the topic too?
Yeah.
Catholics, because when you get blowback from people who aren't Catholic, that happens a lot, where they're like, "Oh, Catholics are of the devil," and they're misunderstanding like the God model. We all essentially believe as Christians the same thing, but there are cultural variations that have grown up over like centuries that are different, but they don't negate, what we actually believe. They're just like, Catholics believe that you can pray to Mary. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, but that doesn't mean a Catholic isn't Christian. They essentially believe in God, and they believe in the divinity of Jesus, and that's really the only. The rest of it is just like stuff that's built up. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the Trinitarian theology is sort of the dividing line for Christianity versus other religions, and Catholics are definitely Trinitarians. The church tradition that I am most interested in learning more about is actually Ethiopian Orthodoxy. It's a very ancient branch of Christianity. It tends to have a lot more Jewish customs associated with it because they were a large Jewish influence prior to their conversion to Christianity. They tend to keep kosher. I think they celebrate both the Sabbath and Sunday. So that would be the denomination or tradition that I'd be interested in learning more about.
Aren't you Anglican?
I am.
Okay. I was just double checking that.
Craig, what are you? I forget because I know you've gone to a lot of different kinds of churches. You've been in Benny Hinn and other places, but you always I notice that you end your YouTube chats with masses ended.
Yeah, that's from
Catholic.
Yeah, that's definitely.
What was that?
I'm
Was
doing
that the
like,
church? Craig, is that the Church of Benny Hill? Is that what you said?
Benny Hinn.
No, that Benny Hinn is like a. He's like a.
I got it, Brenda.
Benny Hill is hilarious.
Benny Hill, I used to watch when I was a kid. Actually,
So did I.
It was a weird. We used to get on Channel 9 this like English broadcast from Thames TV, and I used to watch it all the time.
It was.
So did I.
It was
Craig,
a
I
joke.
totally used to watch that, and you hear that. And Benny's like running around outside in a field. People are
And the
chasing
old man,
him.
and he hits him on the head.
That's so funny. But no, Benny Hinn. No, but what if you? I don't know if you go. I know you go to a church in California. Do you?
Well, the technical denomination I am, yeah, I go to when we do go places, we go to a lot of different stuff. But the technical denomination I am, I think they call it non-denominational. The first church that I became a Christian in was a Vineyard Church, and that means something to people. Like that's an association. It was called the Malibu Vineyard, and it's part of a Vineyard branch. I don't really know this stuff that well. Like I know there are differences, but I don't really think about them all that much. So like Baptists will get really triggered out by certain types of non-denominationals.
Yeah, I always think people always because I when I ask that question about the Catholics, it's funny because people are saying, "Well, that's how the Baptists are." I'm like, "No, I go to a Baptist church. We don't demonize the Catholics," and I think it's because a lot of the members in our church are former Catholics.
Right.
And so
It's really
Nathan,
complicated because even within if you say Baptist, then there are some Baptists that are much more like fundamentalist, rigid strain, which I guess is Southern Baptist. And then, there's always delineations that are different. And they usually mean really culturally specific things, So it's like what's his face says he's a Pentecostal, or originally was a Pentecostal, Jim Majors. And his version of it is this really weird, like snake handling version, which is really different from anything I've ever experienced. So
another key thing is Baptists tend to be Congregationalists, which means that the governance structure is highly decentralized, such that each congregation can vary both in doctrine and discipline to a much greater extent than even like Lutherans or Presbyterians. So you're getting this huge swath of different theological views.
Right. So like with Roman Catholicism, the priest isn't an independent agent. He's not a free agent. He's got to take marching orders from church hierarchy, church structure, just to clarify what he's saying. But like in Christianity, when you see these, like most of the preachers that you've heard about are basically able to function as a free agent unto themselves. That's why there's so much discrepancies. Like, a preacher you've usually heard of is usually some form of Protestant, like Joel Osteen. He's not taking marching orders from any structure necessarily. Right?
Yeah.
That's what you meant, right?
It's one of the interesting things
Exactly.
that I thought about with the Catholic Church, because it is obviously very hierarchical, and the Pope has to be very old to be able to get through the hierarchy. So it's always a really old man who's a Pope. But one of the things that I think that is a strength of that is one of the arguments that I keep hearing from atheists. They say, well, you Christians can't get your act together and figure out which of your denominations is correct.
Right.
And I feel like the Catholics did.
Except
So
they're
they
wrong
have their
about something.
they've
Well, the
got their
rest of you don't
centralized
agree.
authority.
Yeah, but that's a valid point, which is that if there really was a single message from a deity, then it would have one message, not 40,000.
Well,
Well,
there are two
well,
errors there, actually. One is there aren't 40,000 different messages. There are approximately a dozen families of Christianity that agree on the major points, and everyone agrees on the major Trinitarian doctrine. And the other thing is that we disagree on truth all the time. We disagree on significant truths in economics, politics, even science. So mere disagreement, or even strong disagreement, is not a defeater for a claim of an individual truth.
Well, disagreement over issues of religious issues over theology is an indication that there's not a single coherent message.
No, it's not, because it's not an indicator
Yeah, it
in another domain, any other domain.
Brenda,
No,
we
I'm not-
have the contingency argument and the teleological argument, and we have the first courts from horizontal causation. We have intelligent design. We have special revelation, grounded personal cause, and natural laws don't explain themselves. It's very sophisticated.
Could you explain horizontal causation to me, please?
Yeah.
He was being facetious. He wasn't trying to debate you. He was making fun of the
Sure,
debate.
I know that he's an atheist. I know that. I was just wondering about horizontal causation. I hadn't heard that before.
Oh yeah, like efficient causes. Yeah, that would be.
Efficient causes are not horizontal.
Well, that's generally the way in so if you look at philosophical literature, specifically I'm referring to Frederick Copleston here, he would describe the different types of causation as horizontal causation or vertical causation. So a contingency argument, he would call it vertical series of causation, whereas horizontal causation, he would term as efficient causes. So a Kalam cosmological argument.
Yeah, I don't think that that's coherent.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
just
I
doesn't.
didn't think he was
You
defending
told
it.
me
He's
what
just-
it was, but you didn't really. I understand that. I understand he's not defending it.
What do you want to talk about next? That's Jay.
I'm just saying I don't think that efficient cause is the last cause at the end of an Aristotelian kind of conception of causation, right?
Well, it's not the last cause in it. It is.
No, the first one. Is it the first one?
Well, that would be or is it? Well, first, sorry, of Aquinas's ways, that would be the second
Aquinas.
way.
I think actually that reminds me of bringing up Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine and some of the major Christian leaders in the past. If we go back far enough, obviously before Martin Luther in the 1500s, we definitely had a pretty coherent message. There were faults to it, though. A lot of people noticed that obviously there were some faults to the belief systems back then. The popes had made some bad decisions over the years, and it was interesting when Bishop Barron was asked about that. He said, well, what happens if you say the Pope is not infallible? And he said, well, nobody said the Pope is infallible. We know that everyone sins, and we know the Pope sinned too. And so there's that history. And I think it kind of shocked people. He was asked that on Capturing Christianity's channel, and I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Right, because that's still the official, I'm pretty sure that's still the official Catholic Church. See, there's a difference between official church position and what people on the ground floor actually organically believe. Nobody actually believes the Pope is infallible. He was just stating the truth. But I'm pretty sure that's still official church teaching.
The official
I don't
church,
know that for a fact. I just think it is.
My understanding is the official church teaching is that the Pope is infallible when speaking ex cathedra. And if you believe something other than that, you are out of line with the papacy, with Catholicism.
Right. But basically, when the Pope sits in the chair and makes a final decision on some matter of moral teaching or doctrine, is when he's infallible. It's very constrained. Depending on how you count it, it's only occurred between 2 and 8 times in that entire 2,000-year history of the Roman Catholic Church.
Let me just ask real quick, Craig. I've got 2 links for you in here. Which one do you want me to keep?
Bounced out. Brenda started talking. Can you hear me right now?
Oh, okay. Wait. Your other one just bounced out.
Yeah, but Brenda started talking, and all of a sudden I was out of the stream, and I'm like, "What on earth?"
Oh, that's weird.
Oh, I didn't do that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, sure.
No, I didn't.
I did not realize. I did not realize I had such powerful psychic.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the atheist spells or something. It's like.
So I want to ask you.
Oh no! Can you hear me?
I put out another tweet that I thought would be a little bit controversial, and so I like to do that sometimes. But this other tweet, I said that I decided that I looked back to what Max Weber said, and Max Weber was talking a lot about the Protestant work ethic and the spirit of capitalism, and he said that in a lot of the Protestant churches, they build very humble, really small, kind of quaint churches. And he pointed to some of the ones, especially I see that in the United States a lot, especially in Florida. But in some of the cases, the Catholics were building these gigantic, very enormous structures like the Piazza Duomo in Italy and the Notre Dame in France.
Yeah, the best.
And I said, I think we need more of those really huge structures because it'll bring back that sense of awe for God. Because I feel like when you go into those, you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is just amazing. And I knew that would be controversial. A lot of people wrote, why don't we give money to the poor people instead? Don't build the churches. And then I thought of the time when this woman was putting the alabaster oil that was very expensive on Jesus. And he said, well, you'll always have the poor, which won't. It was like, but what about these churches? I don't know. Anyway, so what do you guys think about that? Oh, I just lost Craig again. Dang it. Hopefully we'll get him back.
I just can't control my psychic powers.
Well, I'm a high Anglican, and we're really big into large cathedrals and beautiful architecture that will last thousands of years. So I am definitely a firm on that, both personally and traditionally.
Yeah, I'm curious. So what's an example? Is there an example of a large Anglican cathedral that you'd recommend we visit?
Oh, I can look in Florida. Yeah, Westminster Abbey is one.
Salisbury.
Yep, Salisbury's another one.
Yeah, Salisbury's back. Salisbury's awesome.
Yeah, the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. is Episcopal, with the same type of thing.
Durham's a big one.
Yep.
That sounds good. I'll have to make some trips. I love I love going into, that's one of the things I do when I go into different towns a lot. If I have the spare time, I definitely go looking around at the churches, and I'll walk into whatever the denomination is. If it looks like a fancy church from the outside, I need to see it. So I have lots of pictures in my cell phone of the insides of churches that I've toured around in when they're empty. But I still have to say the most beautiful one was with Piazza del Duomo, and that in Italy is just unbelievable. In Milan, I can't even express it enough. And it was one of those things where they started building it in medieval times. It took a couple hundred years to fully complete, and it's just really interesting. And so I think that I just think I'd like to see more of those. And probably because I'm in Florida, where even our big churches are rather functional looking. Our church where I go right now, they actually built a big building. We just got a brand new big building a couple of years ago, and the inside is a basketball court during the week, and then it's a church on Saturdays and Sundays. They put the chairs out, and so you're actually in a basketball court. It's not at all the kind of feeling you get if you're in a Catholic church that have services every single day, and it's got the stained glass and it's got all that kind of stuff. So it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, I think it's a waste of resources, but I'm not too worried about it because religion is dying, and in America, people are leaving Christianity in droves.
Well, first of all, it's not dying internationally. It's growing rapidly, especially in Africa. Second of all, religion is actually growing, at least in the liturgical traditions in America, even though non-denominational or low church tends to be declining. And I don't think it's a waste at all. These are making beautiful things to honor transcendent values that will last hundreds and thousands of years.
Well, not hundreds of thousands, but well,
Hundreds
we're both
or
biased.
thousands of years.
But we are biased. We are both biased. That's my bias is that I think it's a waste of resources. I just don't think it's where we should be putting our energy at this time. There are much greater issues, existential issues facing us today that we should be putting our resources into. But building a big church even today, although to be honest, building large churches are not really, with a multi-trillion-dollar economy, they aren't really, I guess I'd have to say they aren't really a large drain on resources, because they're just a tiny, tiny fraction of our GDP.
Yeah, a great example of something that is probably a waste is the huge overmatch of our military capability, right? We're spending billions and trillions of dollars on that in the West. And
yeah,
I
agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I don't think that we should be spending so much on that. So that is something that I would agree that we need to change. But doing things that enhance our ability to honor the sacred, I think that's something that we're losing.
I want to show you guys a picture of, we bought 2 brand new churches in my area. One of them is the Catholic Church and one's the church I go to, but I want to show you this picture of this Catholic church because you can just see what I'm talking about. This is this is multiple pictures here, but this is the Catholic Church in my area. It's gigantic, but as you look at it, it's not very special architecturally. So, and then if I just go into the one I go to, this is let me just show you this. Hold on, if it wants to come up. Of course, maybe they don't even have a picture here. There's our pastors. Oh darn, I don't have a picture right here, so I will stop sharing that until I find one. But anyway, I just wanted to show you this idea.
There was a service you shared on Twitter on Sunday. Was it at that church or?
Yeah, at the Fishhawk one.
Yeah, I think I watched like half an hour of it. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. You mean today? Today when I posted it?
Or it might have been a week ago. But yeah, I didn't know it was more like Hillsong, sort of like the music and stuff like that, though, as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so great. That's what I like about it. I like the contemporary music, and that's one of the things that I think that differentiate. See, here's the thing. Catholics tend to be very formal in the church. You see the priests are very dressed up, very fancy outfits and things like that. The Baptists are very casual in the church, but the Baptists are stricter with people, your social ideas. Like, for example, it's in the Catholic faith, they're kind of liberal in a lot of ways. They let people do what they want to do. They talk about drinking and all that kind of stuff. In the Baptist faith, you're not supposed to be drinking. You would never see a Baptist pastor drinking. So it's like kind of interesting that you see these dichotomies.
Yeah, you know why Baptists are against premarital sex?
Because it's biblical?
No, because it could lead to dancing.
Oh, could lead to dancing. Oh boy. Wow. Okay, I just found a picture. Oh, wait, let me see if Craig came back. Craig dropped out here and then he wasn't able to come back.
These are good jokes. These are good jokes. Come on.
No, you're good. It's all good. Okay, so here we go. Let me just show you. This is where I go. So this is what the church looks like. Although right now, this was filmed before COVID, obviously. And so that's the inside of the church.
And everything. You've got.
What'd you say?
The hands in the air and everything.
Oh yeah, we do that when that's how we sing. There they are. See, they dress kind of casually. That's Matthew.
Yeah, it was them that I watched singing. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it's a good church. That's Pastor Daniel right there. Okay, I'll come back out of here. So stop sharing. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to show you that. So that's one experience. So everyone has their different experiences. But when I go down to South Florida, I don't go to the Baptist church down there. I actually go to a Lutheran church where my mother-in-law attends. And so whenever we go down there, that's the church. And they actually have a contemporary service and the more formal liturgical service in the Lutheran church. So we usually go to the liturgical service and my mother-in-law rings the bells. That's what she does. She's a bell ringer. And so that's her portion. yeah, somehow Craig, you got bounced out. Try to get back in here again. And then we go to as I said, we go to the contemporary service sometimes where they play that kind of music that Nathan just mentioned, which I love, which I got from the Baptist church. So
StreamYards just does not like Craig.
I know Craig keeps getting bounced out of here. I don't know why. We just lost him. And so anyway, so what do you, if you guys, for your perceptions from not maybe, or from being agnostic, what are your perceptions of different churches? Is there one that would be more acceptable than others to you two, to Brenda and Digital?
I mean, like, to a large degree, it also matters what's being said, because like, I mean, something that gets me through the door is like that architectural beauty and stuff like that, certainly, and even if the liturgy itself is like a beautiful thing, and that can be beautiful for different reasons, right? Like because it's very historical, or whatever. But it's still very difficult for me to then get past the content of that, because like I mean, I view religion as sort of not particularly a truth apt thing anyway, in a sense of it's like a poem or something that you kind of you enjoy it, but it is then difficult though if part of that private language game involves like talking about things that just aren't true, either historically or about morality, like about gay people being wrong or whatever, or the spiritual, like the kind of modern evangelical spiritual warfare thing of, the world's out to get you, the world's evil, but just enjoy your horrible life and you'll be good with God or whatever. Like all that stuff is just frustrating and difficult to get past. When it's like, well, it'd be nice to just be in a cool building and sing hymns without the kind of crappy message. I don't know. That's
Well, I think that's one of the things that sort of divided our nation right now in the United States. One of the things is this whole right versus left, or conservative versus liberal, and a lot of it does have to do with religion. And a lot of the people, especially the working class, Andrew and I were kind of touching on this before, but the working class feeling like their religion is being persecuted. It's like a lot of times you'll see in the United States people sticking up for Muslims or sticking up for Jewish people. I mean, a lot of these liberal people go well out of their way to stick up for them, but then they come down really hard on Christians.
Yeah.
So I'm really not convinced that politics and religion are as intertwined as that. I think that the division in the United States is political, and because there are plenty of people who are evangelical and who are very socially liberal, right? And there are, so I think the division, I'm not convinced. I would need more information to really feel confident in saying that politics and religion are so intimately intertwined. I think that it's very likely that this is just an artifact of something, and not true. But I don't know. I mean, I would need to be convinced.
Yeah, the probably the strongest proxy measure, at least in the United States, is weekly church attendance is correlated with being more right-wing politically across a variety of denominations, including Roman Catholicism. Partially that's due to the way that the different political wings deal with issues of abortion and human sexuality. Part of that might be temperamental. Part of that might be a feedback loop between the moral foundations of the right wing and religion cultivating those things. But there is at least a hint that religious piety and being somewhat more right wing are true. This isn't necessarily true of economic thought, but it's true of the broader political thought. There's a very mixed bag in like how one looks at like a single payer healthcare or minimum wage or economic issues. That tends to vary more everywhere. But on the sort of central narrative of our culture, there is a relatively deep connection to religious piety.
Yeah, I want to just first say, before I say anything, I want to thank John. He's he's just sent more very generous super chat. He has a question here that I think he wants to pose to everybody. Should the military force vaccinate people, even though there will be more than likely a number of people who will suffer from severe autoimmune responses or even death? So should we force vaccinations, obviously for COVID? What do you guys think?
No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should roll out tanks to enforce vaccinations.
No, I don't think you should do that even for smallpox. And smallpox is a much more severe problem than COVID is.
Yeah.
No, it's not. But I think that there should be legal consequences for not vaccinating yourself because it is a clear threat and going to be a clear threat. So I think that going back to what we said before, I think that the real division is one between paranoia and conspiracy theories, and not politics versus religion. The clear danger in the United States right now is a potentially very violent conspiracy theory called QAnon, and that I think is a danger. I don't think that's religious. That's just paranoia and conspiracy thinking.
To build off of this idea of politics and religion, and kind of building off of what all of you are saying, I'm looking. One of the things I did notice is I decided to see, okay, what are all the atheists doing? Who are they voting for? And so I went to the American Atheists, then I went to the American Humanists, and I went to the Atheist Experience, and then I looked at Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews, and every one of them, without exception, is voting for Democrats. They're all voting for Joe Biden, and so I thought that was interesting. And now we just lost Andrew, unfortunately. I don't know if
I don't think
dropping like flies.
I don't think that's a very scientific survey. That's just a check on your biases. So or the biases of the internet. That would be so. A truer measure would simply be a scientific survey. I think that a lot of people are voting against Trump because he's a fascist, and we don't accept fascism here in the United States.
Well, I can say there are more scientific places. Like I went to the Pew Research, and I found from Pew Research, they've also said that the typical atheist tends to be a young white male who's liberal. And so I know there are exceptions, like Hellbound Heathen. He's not an atheist, but Hellbound Heathen is a pretty vocal Republican. And I know that there are people like him out there too. But it typically, at least in my experiences, the people I've encountered, it kind of goes in line with this idea of being liberal and Democrat.
That's interesting that Hellbound Heathen would be Republican. I wouldn't have expected that from someone who's what he's putting out there with the sort of Satanism stuff, whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting.
He's a Satanist? He's a Satanist? Is that it? I don't know much.
I'm confused about Hellbound Heathen's positions. I find them very confused. It's like, I'm confused about what his specific beliefs are.
Yeah, I don't know how much he's just having fun and how much he takes it seriously, whatever. But
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different. The thing is a lot of times people say, well, what about the Christian faith or Jewish faith? You think about those major world religions, but there is a contingent, and I think it's actually growing from what I've seen, of pagans. You guys notice that the pagan population is growing in places like Iceland and
I've noticed there's more crystals and yoga type spirituality, and so
isn't that over with? I mean, that's like 1990s new age crap.
Oh, seriously, no. Yeah, especially amongst health, fitness, and well-being and stuff, like the middle class people with trying to take care of their bodies and stuff, and then this mind well-being thing comes in with which the more fringe type people will be all into crystals and energy and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I think what I saw is in a digital Hammurabi says he can join, but he has a 2-year-old. That's totally fine. I have a 2-year-old in the background that adds some fun entertainment. What was I just going to say? What I saw with Iceland that I thought was really interesting. Like if you guys type in Iceland and fairies,
yeah,
okay, They believe, I'm not, this is not to make jest or anything, but they believe truly a big portion of them believes there's little fairies, like there's these little like garden trolls.
Yeah, I understand that, but well, that's the internet, though. That's a bias. I mean, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it is pervasive in Iceland. I mean, so I don't know.
Culture.
Huh?
It's legitimately a part of their culture. They have like little houses and things that they
Yeah,
build.
but that's just fun. I mean, that could be like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. That's what it could be.
Well,
So do they seriously believe it? That's the question.
Brenda, chill. Like, there's a lot more to it. Like, there's, would you say our culture believes in Santa Claus, even though, like, every year?
No, we don't.
But every year, right? We do kind of erect Christmas trees, and it's like this big part of what we do. Like, we get each other presents, and we participate in this myth. It's like what we mean by belief here, or like, it's not quite clear that it's just, it's not just this purely rational thing. Like, why the hell are we doing that? Like, what? There's things that
it seems clear to me. It seems clear to me that the United States does not actually believe in Santa Claus.
Yeah, but like this is like a massive. I mean, so do people not give each other presents every year and put up a Christmas tree and put up lights? Like, what are people doing then?
Yeah, I'm just looking. I was showing this article from 2013. I know I had a better article than that one, but anyway, I was just showing that to you guys to see that there is a contingent. I don't know how big it is of people who believe in these little supernatural fairies.
I think.
Oh, look at Hellbound Heathen is here. Sorry, I didn't let me add him to the screen.
I think people are just having fun.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like I'm not saying like propositionally, right, that when people get each other presents, they think that like Santa Claus is coming down the chimney and doing it and stuff. But like, that's the same for Christianity. Like, I don't think. I mean, I know Christians will say this, and feel free to push back, SJ, or whatever. But I genuinely don't think that Christianity either is about like Jesus actually rising from the dead or like miracles or anything like that. I think it.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah. That's what it is.
Like going to church on a Sunday and like being part of a community of believers, and you've got your highest values enshrined. Like, this is.
Okay.
I just put a link in there for Digital Hammurabi. I want to comment. We better not talk about Santa Claus though, because he has a little 2-year-old running around in the background, and I don't know.
But that's just the difference between nominal Christians and being culturally Christian and culturally believing in Santa Claus versus actually believing it.
So the propositional beliefs that someone has, though, okay, on the whole story, like we do all sorts of things that we wouldn't like propositionally say we believe. There's like all this subconscious stuff going on in our minds. There's all this irrational stuff we do, and there's just way more to it than just like the like the dry content of like people describing, oh, it's true that I like brush my teeth in the morning and eat food or something.
Well, let me first say hi to Hellbound Heathen, because he just joined. He's been in here a couple times, and so hi, Hellbound Heathen.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Now, okay. I was just going to say, we talked about your being a Republican. Maybe that sort of got your attention.
Yeah, I was actually going to just sit this one out, but then my name came up, and so I decided to join in. But yeah, actually, this is the very first year that I'll be a Republican. All the other years, I've been a very, very far left, in my opinion, leftist. I live in San Francisco, California. I work for nonprofits all my life. I'm surrounded by every walk of life you could possibly imagine. But the left has just gone, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to start anything here, but in my opinion, they've gone just way too far to the left. So they left me in the middle. And now, in 2020, the middle is far right because they have moved that far left. And so I still consider myself a liberal, Democrat, left, but the left has gone insane, and they're not checking themselves. I feel like the right is checking themselves, but the far left is not. They just keep going farther and farther and farther and farther. And now we have people that kid's not here, good, okay. But now they are murdering people in the streets because they're Republicans. It has happened twice now. So it's very disturbing to me. And the left really needs to control it. They need to take responsibility for their rhetoric and their propaganda, and they need to stop it. And they need to wrestle it in. And just while I'm quickly here. So I am an occultist. I've been initiated as a witch. I'm also a witch and an occultist, but I find the word witch is usually kind of, it kind of like shocks people a little too much. I find that the word occultist is more accepting by people who
about the world. Like, I don't really understand what's involved in that.
What's involved in what?
Like being a witch, what does that mean? You sort of think about reality, like does it?
So it is understanding how basically my concept, and again, various people have various different concepts. We don't have one unified dogma, but I believe that everything is connected. So that when I go out into nature and I revere nature and I look up at the world and I see everything, I find that I'm connected to it. I'm not separate from, I'm actually a part of it. So that is, if I was going to break down my world belief, that's what it is. It's understanding how I am connected to everything. And the occult is really, it was a science back in the Renaissance and Middle Ages. It was based on mathematics and rhetoric, arithmetic, not arithmetic. What's the other one? Anyhow,
numerology. Numerology is what you mean.
No. There was actually what we base our educational system on today, like, the 3 R's, arithmetic, right? Yeah.
What did you say? I didn't hear what.
3 hours reading, writing, arithmetic.
There it is. Thank you. Yes.
Let me first say I have a couple other people in here. I've got Mr. Parker and Sol, and we had Josh in here. He just dropped off somehow.
We ran away, didn't we, SJ? You see?
I think he's running from you, Nathan. When he spotted you in here. So I want to say, you guys want to say hi? I haven't had Sol on here before, I don't think so.
Well, I just don't know what Hellbound. I think I just don't know what he means when he's talking about the left, as if they are any kind of a potent force in politically. They can't even get a non-socialist in Bernie Sanders, who is not a socialist. They can't even get him nominated for the Democrats. And there is no Red Rose coalition in the U.S. Congress. They can't get a coalition. There is a coalition of progressive Democrats, but they aren't left. They are, if anything, just left of center. So I don't see what we call the left in American political scene today as being any kind of a force. The force is fascism and white supremacy. We have in the United States right now a president who is using the powers of the estate to pursue his political enemies, which is literally fascism. So I think that's the bigger. I think that's the bigger threat.
Would you say the other one's an issue though as well? Like it doesn't have to be exclusive.
No, I don't. I think they're irrelevant.
So you don't think murdering people in the street is violent?
Yes, that's a non sequitur.
What do you mean it's a non sequitur? It's an actual fact.
No, it doesn't. Yes, sure it is. It doesn't follow.
Murdering someone in the street, it doesn't follow that it's an issue. Is that what you're saying?
No. Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me just first say, I want to see if Mr. Parker and Sol want to talk here just for a second, because I haven't heard from them and I've never heard from Sol, so I don't know what Sol's side is here.
Hi, SJ. I'm playing Betrayal at House on the Hill with the kids at the same time, so kind of listening and watching.
Okay.
I was typing some comments into the chat from the Catholic perspective, but Andrew did. Andrew hit quite a few of the things probably similar to what I would have commented.
Oh, you're Sol. I know who you are. You're on.
Yeah, I'm
you're
Sol
on
from Twitter.
Okay. Yeah. Well, welcome. Yeah. So that's good. I say you on Twitter quite a bit recently. So.
Yeah, I kind of purge and then binge. It seems like I'll be on pretty steady for a week or two, and then life takes over. We got 5 kids, so I try to give them as much time as I can too.
You're like the typical Catholic family with tons of kids.
Yeah, we are.
You know what it means to be a Protestant.
You just got to take the TV out of the bedroom.
Yeah, that's funny. I grew up with a Catholic family. Their last name was what was their last name? Heaton. They were Irish Catholic, and they had 21 kids. 21. Can you imagine? It's like one of those shows on TV.
Yeah, we're 50 and 51 respectively. Still open to life, and I would love another baby, but if God wills it.
You never know. My sister-in-law just had a baby at 52.
That's kind of dangerous at that age, but
it is. But she did it, and I don't think she thought she was going to get pregnant, and then she suddenly got pregnant, and so they're really happy, real thankful. They've got a little boy and little girl right now, so everything's good.
Our oldest is 17 and our youngest is 9, so we'd have plenty of babysitters. But when I start thinking about being 70 when that new baby would go to college, that seems a little on the long end.
Yeah. Well, it's nice having you on. So I appreciate you coming in today. I know you're busy. I can hear the noise in the background. And Mr. Parker, you've been in here before. Oh, and I see Josh is back. So good. We'll add him too.
Oh yes, finally, we stopped running.
So Josh, you're not going to run away from Nathan anymore, are you? You can run, but you can't hide. Nathan's going to find you.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Hi, Josh.
How are you?
I'm fine. I follow you on Twitter, and I like your tweets. I follow Skylar, too. You and Skylar and I have had run-ins in the past. I would like you to chop that up to my sometimes mercurial temperament, and that it changes. I don't dislike Skylar. I have bad days.
Oh no, it's totally
Okay.
understand.
Well, I just wanted to get that straight, because it simply varies. 1 week I'll like him a lot, and then I'll get in a bad mood and I won't like him at all.
I feel like that's pretty common in the social media world.
I think Skylar is funny because at first I didn't get along with Skylar at all. And then Skylar was making all these videos and I would get really mad.
But I thought...
And then he got on. I like him now.
SJ, I thought that Photoshop of you in the clueless outfit was actually cute.
I don't like that at all.
I think that was a good look for you.
No,
I'm being totally honest.
She looked like Big Bird with that yellow outfit on. It's like I look at that and I feel like it's Big Bird.
Well, it's kind of 90s, but I thought it was cute. I didn't. Yeah.
Mm. Well, it's better than the one he did where I had a McDonald's hat on and I was serving fries.
I think
there's nothing wrong with service.
No, there's nothing wrong with service, although he was I don't know. Anyway, so he stopped doing that. We've come to and then he was working on, we shouldn't talk about him behind his back now that I realize, but he has new people he talks about now. He doesn't talk about me anymore. And so I'm perfectly happy with that.
You're old news.
Exactly. That's good. Let's keep it that way.
Sometimes it's good not to be on someone else's tongue.
So it's funny. So Josh, how you doing?
I'm okay. I'm keeping one ear out for. I've put Oliver down in front of some monster trucks, so hopefully he'll stay there until Megan gets back. But
you know what you should do, Josh?
Camera.
You should do, Josh. It's serious. Get that. There's a toy that automatically places domino-shaped things in a line, so you can tip them over.
I saw that.
Right? Have you ever seen those?
Mm-mm.
My guess is that would give you hours of free time.
I imagine so.
Yeah,
I saw that toy on Twitter, actually.
Yeah, it looks like a little train or something, and you stack up a whole bunch of these. I don't know if they're actually dominoes. They're domino shaped, and you put them into this long square thing. Pop it on the top of the little train, and then it chugs along, and it lays down a line of dominoes, and then you can just tip them over. I'm pretty sure that will just equal hours of time.
I believe that.
Yeah, he's really cute, your little son. I saw a picture of, I think it was you. I think either you or your wife posted it yesterday on Twitter, and it was so cute. You guys taking a walk?
Oh yeah,
A little blonde hair, very cute. So if we return to the topic we were originally talking, so we talked about churches before, and now that we have a few new people here with different perspectives, what do you guys think? You think churches can be too big and too lavish that are out there, or I'm just curious.
I mean, I guess I go. I think that's totally dependent upon the people that are donating to the church. I mean, some people value that sort of thing highly, and if that's what they want to give their money to, I think that's personal preference. I remember when I was in where was I? I guess I was in Marburg, Germany, for one of the language courses before I went to Tübingen, and the church that was there, I can't remember the name of it, but it was just unbelievable. It was beautiful, and just going in there it's an awe-inspiring thing. And then, of course, I feel bad saying this, but I mean, when I was in Tübingen, our library for the Ancient Near Eastern Studies was in the castle, up on the top of the hill. So, working in the castle every day, it's
oh my gosh,
that must have been cool.
It was nice. It wasn't a fun walk every day, but
that would be cool though.
It was nice.
So he says, I look like this. I don't know if I look like that. She's like cuter than I am. So I will take that as a compliment.
That's V that said that, by the way, SJ, not me. She's typing on my laptop.
Oh, that's so funny. So Nathan said he's going to become a Roman Catholic to warm up to V's family.
That V said that on my laptop. That one.
She's speaking for you now.
Yeah.
That's one way of acceptance, coming into the same faith as and that's actually might be one of the reasons why some people come to the faith in the first place, or say that they're Christians, is because they have a husband or a wife or a girlfriend or something that they
that's the Pine Creek theorem, which I think is true.
Yeah, I think that
young ladies, young women have converted more men than any apologetics have. I think that's true.
Than the Holy Spirit ever has.
Well, there's more. That's the interesting thing, is I have seen this. There's more atheists and agnostics who are males, and I mean more females are believers, and that's in multiple studies. It's not just Pew Research, world value surveys, and those kind of places too. So I can see how women might be bringing. I mean, it's who drags the husband to church. Usually, it's me in my family. We haven't gone lately though because of COVID, but we probably somehow need to get back in there at some point.
Is your church open?
Yeah, it's open, but you have to do reservations, and they only allow a certain amount of people, and everyone's in masks, and the experience isn't going to be what it was. I just can't wait to get back to how things used to be.
Yeah, really. Yeah, the churches around here are closed.
My mom goes to a church, and this summer they met outdoors for most of the church. She lives in a very small town, so it's a small community. So they just would meet outdoors.
Yeah, that's. What were you gonna say, Sol?
Yeah, I don't know the exact statistics, but when you mentioned the wives dragging the men in the family to church, and if the father is the primary person saying, "Hey, faith is important to us," and taking the family to church. The statistics on whether or not those kids go on to remain in some sort of faith is pretty one-sided versus when it's just the mom. I mean, it's not exclusive. Doesn't mean that you're not going to stay in a certain faith tradition if your dad is the one that takes you to church, but it's a pretty large statistical sampling that points in that direction. So I try to make sure that I'm the one saying we're going. That was something my wife and I, before we even got married, said was going to be a non-negotiable for both of us. Is we're with a big family like ours, we travel back and forth across the country to see family, and we pull that van into roadside Catholic churches, and out of the middle of nowhere, here comes this family of 7, like a whirling dervish into the place. So if it's Sunday, we're stopping. We just figure out on MapQuest where it is we got to go and pull the van over.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. So yeah, so that's the, well, even when the thing is too, is my husband is influential. Like when I got married to him, there was never we're going to go get approved by the priest. Number one is because I wasn't even really attending church at that point. But it was also because his mother-in-law is a very devout Lutheran. And so I wanted to make sure I pleased that family. So I'm like, wherever you guys want to do it, man, I'm fine. You want us to do it through the Lutheran church? Sure. I'm a Lutheran now. Completely not allowed to. I told my sister that too. I said, oh, I'm a Lutheran now. And she's like, you can't just do that. You're not allowed to just say you're a Lutheran and become a Lutheran. I'm like, why not? I just declared it yet. And then as soon as I moved here, I declared myself a Baptist. And so it's like, people are like, you just can't do that. But I don't really have I'm not, what you might notice is I'm not one of those people who thinks that only one denomination is going to make it. Like Cy ten Bruggencate, as I showed you guys a little while ago, he told me I'm dangerous because I have these different values than he has.
But aren't most of Christian-based religions the same? I mean, I know there's various differences, so I know they're not exactly the same. But I mean, basically, you believe in Jesus and you believe in God and you believe in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
So basically,
I think there's probably like Muslim denominations that are closer to certain Christian denominations on a lot of things, or it really is quite broad, like what people believe out there.
And I think the perspective also plays a significant role. So for people, looking into Christianity from the outside, there's a lot of continuity. But I think for people, particularly in sort of sub-denominations, looking at the rest of Christianity, would say, well, actually, there's a very select few that we would say are Christian, and certainly those Catholics aren't.
You've got one right here today. Sol Sokut.
Right.
Those horrible, evil Catholics and Anglicans, which are basically the same.
Yeah, Andrew's Anglican.
Yeah, I was going to correct Andrew. I mean, he said he was Protestant small p. I was like, no, it's really Catholic small c.
Yeah, anyone who doesn't believe in the King James as well. That's
yes, sir. Well, that's a given.
Or anyone who supports the gays.
That's Sol?
As there's been recently some really strange gospel of Paul, like that Paul taught one gospel and Jesus taught another gospel. So there are some really fringe things
what
out there.
I was. Yeah, that's what I was. I was an ultra dispensationalist, they would call it. But I knew my stuff. You see, I couldn't be wrong.
So So I want to ask you, Josh, do you get dragged over to church sometimes, kicking and screaming?
Oh, no. I mean, obviously we haven't gone because of COVID. But yeah, I mean, we're back sort of in my hometown ish now. And there's an Episcopalian church that we go to. I love it there. But of course it's very different from the Baptist churches or the dispensational churches that I grew up in. So, but no,
what kind of music do they sing in Episcopalian? I don't think I've even been in one of those before.
Yeah, it's I mean, ours is very there's a hymnal and but
no Hillsong heresy. That's actually singing like Hillsong at her church. I would have thought she was like traditional hymn.
How did I know that was? I'm going to start posting all of our church week links because I didn't know Nathan was tuning in. That's awesome.
I was singing along.
So I watched that. I ride my bike and I listen to the church service, and then I tweet it out so you guys can hear it too. So they have hymns because that's the Catholic Church is more, at least the ones I've been into, is more hymn based. Versus that contemporary music. And so it sounds like Episcopalian's more hymn-based too?
I mean, I think it depends on the area. I mean, they will try to mix in, certainly not, there's no audio adrenaline playing, or something like that. But, there's no drum set. But they'll try to mix in some more choruses. But it's still pretty traditional, I would say. But I think a lot of that has to do with, we were on the committee to try to figure out why attendance was down, and try to do things to bring attendance back up. So I think a lot of those were movements toward that. So
that's actually a good point, because that's the Lutheran church that I attend. I was mentioning this before in Boca Raton. They have a mix. So they have certain services you can go to that are very traditional and hymn based, which that's my mother-in-law prefers, and I think the older generation prefers that. And then there's my generation. I'm actually an older generation, but still I like the contemporary, and so do my kids. And so I feel like we relate in that. And so I think that the idea of offering both, I think that's pretty good move on their part.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot more than everybody else. So I'll be quiet after this. But I did a stream, I think it was last weekend, with on the channel TART. I can't remember what that stands for. The atheist something. Anyway, but we had two current Christian pastors on and two former pastors on. And we were talking about like problems with why can't I think of the term? Psychological problems that can develop with things like just burning out and developing mental disorders in the pastorate in particular, and how to handle that. And one of the things that I think was prominent was Kyle, one of the current pastors, was talking about how he had a breakdown, and he sort of in passing said, "Yeah, it was during our second service of 3, and I was giving a sermon, and he blacked out essentially because he hadn't been sleeping." And that's, I think, one of the big downsides to it is a congregation will often think pastors only work on Sundays, really. Right. I mean, they might do some stuff during the week, but they only really work on Sundays. So we can give them three services to do. And of course, nobody really maybe goes through that cognitive process, but pastors will take that on and wear themselves out. And anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, and see, we do 3 services now because of COVID, but we were down to just a couple services because the building's so much bigger than our original building that there's just tons and tons of space. But now they're back. I mean, yeah, as I said, they also have 2 Saturday night services, but the pastors always split up those. Like there's one Saturday and one Sunday.
You have like a staff. There's a staff of pastors that can cover that.
Yeah, but as a university professor, I can understand sort of what they do, because a lot of people think, oh, you only work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, yeah,
right.
Yeah, but I go and I do teach 3 classes. So and sometimes they haven't been right in a row lately, but sometimes they are. So I teach right now I'm teaching from 12 to 2 and from 4 to 9 on Tuesday, and then from 4 to 6 on Thursday. So that can be, I mean, it can be, and I stand, I'm standing right now. I refuse to sit down when I'm teaching. And actually I even asked the students, I said, would you guys prefer to stand? And they said, no, they think I'm a weirdo. I'm like, I'm the oldest one in the room and I'm standing. What's with you guys? Get up.
So pastors work on other days of the week too?
They meet with people a lot. They go out to hospitals and they do things like that too.
I didn't think about that.
And there's, there are always programs that are running, and there's studying that needs to be done.
So it's not just one day a week.
Yeah. No, definitely not. I remember I was in the building, and I was the associate pastor, but I was in the building from 7:30 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then usually there was something that happened on Saturday, and then of course you're in there for God knows how many hours on Sunday. And I wasn't completely full time. I was, like 3/4 time or something technically. But.
Yeah, because I've only attended a couple of services. I've been to a Christmas mass or midnight mass, and I went to another mass, and then I've been to I forget what denomination church. I was visiting my brother a long time ago. I mean, it's interesting, but for me, it's just kind of like you're sitting there. And, you're in the pew, and then the priest is up in the front, and we were singing and listening to him. And I mean, it was kind of interesting. I really liked the architecture of the Christmas Mass. I think that the liturgy and the ritual was really, really nice.
When you're in the pews, do you go pew 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 pew?
I refrained from that just to be courteous to other
That's actually, you're bringing up something that's interesting though, that I did. There's a Lutheran church in my area that I have gone to before I started going to the Catholic church, because my husband wanted to go to that Lutheran church, and they actually had a Stations of the Cross thing right during Christmas. So each person reenacts the whole Stations of the Cross of Jesus on the cross. And my husband, I can think of this years ago, it's so funny. He and his twin brother were dressed up, and I think they were shepherds, and we were going around, and I didn't know what he was going to be dressed up as. And I'm taking the kids around, they're really little, and all of a sudden I look up and there he is in this really hilarious outfit. And I thought, it's just, I don't know, I just thought it was funny.
Hey Josh, do you ever get like in your church when you're going, do you get the pastor, like, I don't know, giving a sermon or something, and they go, oh, and some evil atheists who want to, like, do they know what you do online and stuff and your position?
They do, yeah. And actually, that was probably one of the first groups that we told about it, and they were all very excited about it. Of course, I don't think that anybody views our channel outside of a certain group of people, maybe on YouTube. I don't think anybody sees our channel as like pro atheist or pro demolishing the Bible or whatever.
Where apologetics comes to die. Are you kidding me?
Oh no, that's Skylar. That's Skylar. And he doesn't say that anymore. I feel like it's because what does he say now? He says, "Where all your dreams come true."
Oh,
because of the apologetic empire, you see, he's made a claim there, and it's been falsified because the empire just keeps growing.
Well, I mean, I think it's because you can't say what your metaphysical primary is, Nathan. So,
because it's a metaphysical.
No, that's true. Yeah, I think your channel, Josh, what you're doing on your channel is more, I think you're trying to educate people on the ancient Sumerian culture, and you bring on people to talk about that kind of stuff. I think that I can see where the church would find that pretty interesting.
We had, not to like shill, but we had Eckhart Fromm come on, who I'm sure nobody, I say that like, oh my gosh, Eckhart Fromm. But he is a huge name in Assyriology. But he talked about the connections between the ancient Near East and the biblical text more on a literary level, and he dealt with like Genesis and some other things. But it was such a great stream, and his students emailed us and said, we would like to ask if he can come on and give an interview. It was like, yeah, yes, he can. I think it was the first time somebody's reached out to us for an interview. So that was
that's
thing. Was it more like, yeah, he can. No, I can't do your voice. I'm gonna have to practice that. Yeah, he can't come in.
I do a really good Josh voice. You're right.
Yeah, you have to say sorry about 13
Sorry.
times.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Sorry.
Josh, I can do his voice really well. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not very good at doing.
I think I'm going to drop out. So.
Okay. Well, it's good seeing you, Bob.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join in, and I'll be in the chat watching, but I'm just going to drop out. All right.
Okay.
See you
Thank
all.
you.
No problem.
So, Dr. Josh, I'm from Minnesota and Minnesotan, and and we say sorry quite a lot here because it's just part of our culture. Yeah.
Do you guys say hoser and take off, or is that too Canadian?
That's Canadian. Yeah, we say yeah.
I remember that movie of North Dakota, Fargo. And they were going around talking. They had the Minnesota accent too.
The Minnesota accent. I liked the prostitutes best in that movie. They were fantastic. But the Fargo is a little bit. I'm really exaggerating it, and Fargo was a little bit exaggerated. But they kind of get the gist of it pretty good. They get because the Coen brothers are from Edina, which is a city here in Minnesota.
Huh. I used to be I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up right outside of Chicago. And so I say Chicago. I mean, if I really want to put my accent on, you guys will know. I start talking just like my mom. Got patio. I'm going to talk some patio furniture. We used to sell patio furniture. So it's hilarious. We have casual furniture here. That's the Illinois accent.
This is S.J. Thomason from Christian-apologist.com voice. You put that voice on when you do that bit at the start.
Christian-apologist. I can't even. It's funny because when I go back up there and I hear people talk like that, I think to myself, I used to always talk like that. And we say stuff like if I'm talking about an ROOF. If you're from Illinois, you say rough. Like a rough. And I don't say that anymore. I say roof now. It's just, and I used to say pop all the time to refer to soda.
Yes. Yeah, we say pop. We don't know what soda is. Soda is those jugs of 2-liter carbonated water that you use to mix cocktails with. So the other stuff is just pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was always pop. A pop machine.
Yeah. Pop.
Oh, we're offending Stephen Steen. Thanks for the super chat, Stephen Steen. Oh, he's hilarious. I was trying to, Stephen, you should join us. He'll only join people like James on Modern Day Debate. So what do you guys have going on these days? What's new with you guys? What are you working on?
Well, I'm going to be leading John Steingard to hell in a week or two.
Oh, now Pine Creek said if Christian puts Steingard on his channel or her channel, they might as well shoot themselves in the foot because Steingard's going to lead them all to hell.
Yeah. Well, but I find like there's these fringe characters like John Steingard or like Tom Holland that, you know, like apologists, they'll say things that sound like they're open to Christianity in a certain way, but then apologetics channels like twist it into like this just shows how true Christianity is or whatever. It's really it's quite frustrating, like especially with Tom Holland. Like I was watching Glenn Scrivener's, you know, like when he just like says everyone's a Christian or whatever, and then they're like, oh yeah, this is so, and then I was like, well, but you all think he's going to hell still, right? Because he hasn't said Jesus rose from the dead. So like, you know, like what's this bolstering your confidence thing? But yeah, I think with Steingard it'd be interesting to see from it because he's been talking to like Sean McDowell, Justin Briley and all of these people have like an agenda to be like, you know, the Christianity's still in him. He's just on his, and I think it'd be interesting to just hear from his perspective what's going on and how these different factions are trying to like use him as a voice to put forward their own agenda and stuff like that. Yeah,
on Tom Holland. No, I read Tom Holland's book, Dominion, and I would highly recommend that for everybody to read. But Tom Holland says he's glad. Here's a quote from him: "I'm glad to identify as a Christian." And I don't know how to take that. Does that mean he identifies as a cultural Christian? He likes the fact that the Christian culture is, like he noticed in Dominion, that the Christian culture has really contributed to the way life is today for us in positive ways. And so, but I don't know. And then some people have told me, I actually had one person tell me that secretly behind closed doors, Tom told him that he is a full Christian now, but I can't reveal who that person was. So.
I imagine it was Esther O'Reilly, that I imagine, who I find that whole thing, her very bizarre character anyway. But yeah, the whole thing with Tom, like he was on Glenn's thing this morning, and he quite clearly said that he doesn't think Jesus rose from the dead, and that he doesn't think that like objectively moral values or anything exist as a feature of the world. He just thinks religion's kind of important to human beings. And so I would say for most Christians that, you know, he's unfortunately going to have to burn in hell forever.
Well, that's and just talking about that, I have had Esther O'Reilly on my channel. I love Esther O'Reilly. I think she's one of my favorite people to have on here. In fact, I forgot about her. So thank you for reminding me. I got to go hunt her down and have her come back on again. So, but I'd like to have Tom Holland on the channel too, but that's a far stretch. He's not going to come to a channel with 1,500.
Because you're a Christian.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll grill him. No, just kidding. So what else are you guys working on? Anyone else wants to add to that? You guys?
Oh, well, go ahead.
I'm going live in like an hour or two. Have an open hangout, I guess. And that's it, really. I've had many discussions on my channel about politics and whatnot. That's what I've been doing.
That's cool. Yeah, nice having you on again, Mr. Parker. I've seen you on Twitter too. I see you around in Twitter. So
Yeah, I'm quite active on Twitter.
I am here in the Minnesota. We have a program for. I am 62, and here in Minnesota we have a program that permits people that age and up to attend University of Minnesota for very reduced rate. So I have a philosophy course that I'm taking at the University of Minnesota. And so I have classes tomorrow. And in fact, I shouldn't be here. I should be reading my assignment, but I'm not. I'm slacking off.
Oh, I think that's great. I like when schools do something like that, or when states do that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't use it for towards a degree, but it doesn't matter to me. I just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. So how about you guys, Sol or Dr. Josh?
My latest book comes back from the editor today. So Megan put together the cover this morning. So I think she's going to put it online for pre-order. But I think it gets, I don't know if you can hear him. I think it gets released November 1st officially. So
what's the book on?
It's publication of my dissertation at a popular level. So it's talking about how scribes, like how students learned at school, what their curriculum was like in the early second millennium BCE. And then it connects that to how there's a certain type of priest that would pray to the gods to calm them down so that they wouldn't get really angry and destroy the city. And it shows the connection between the schoolhouse and the church, or the temple.
I think that's true today. Teachers pray their students won't burn the city down. They do that today.
But it goes into sort of the connection between the schoolhouse and the temple. And then it talks about how those traditions from the early second millennium worked their way down into the first millennium and ultimately, affect the Old Testament and Western civilization as a whole. So should be fun.
No, that does sound interesting.
How do you feel confident knowing these kinds of things from that long ago? I mean, is it mostly just guesswork, or?
We have the tablets. Yeah, we have the originals. That's the difference between. Yeah, that's the difference between something like biblical studies and Assyriology.
Ouch! That left a mark.
Josh, minimal facts. We have the minimal facts. Thank you.
It's true. That's true. We have them for you're referring to the Naram Sin minimal facts. That's what you're talking about.
Just the minimal facts that prove that your Lord and Savior rose from the dead. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Roger that.
You guys are funny. Hey, Sol, what are you working on besides 5 kids over there?
Well, I'm not publishing or writing any books, unless it would be about how to keep your sanity, or at least part of it, while you got 5 kids. I've been doing some one-on-one dialogue DMs with a fallen away Christian atheist, talking about the cosmological arguments for God's existence and how actuality and potence and actuality, and really trying to break it down in, when you're talking actual philosophy, you want to use very precise terms, because terms like accidents have a precise meaning, but trying to break it down more into, like I was talking to, like my 9-year-old, to just say, well, this is what it means and how you can visualize it. But, obviously one of the struggles gets into, well, is if you can't test it with a scientific instrument, can you really count that as evidence? And, I can't test how much logic weighs or what its length is, but I trust logic as a form of at least reasoning as evidence. So that's been interesting. I'm an amateur philosopher and delve into Aquinas and so forth, and listen to a lot of podcasts, like you mentioned, Matt Fradd, a lot of stuff from the Thomistic Institute. They've got a lot of good scientists on there, astrophysicists, quantum physicists. I'm a STEM grad by trade, but have been in the military my whole adult life, so not really using it. But my math science background, I really find the cosmological arguments really interesting because I kind of wrap my brain around those science pieces first, as opposed to more of the theological piece. And with a couple of teenagers, we like to talk philosophy around the house. My son had to write a paper recently on Anselm versus Aquinas, and it was just interesting hearing from a 17-year-old. So I didn't like Anselm because his first premise was God, and then went forward. And I liked Aquinas because his first premise was the universe exists and went forward. So, get some good discussions and Q&A around the supper table here as well.
That sounds really interesting. Are your kids going to a Catholic school?
They are now. We homeschooled basically until the fifth one started school, and with 4 boys and 1 girl. We've got friends of ours that have families of 9 9 kids that homeschool all through.
Oh my gosh.
But as we started to reflect on it, most of those people we know with those larger families, it's almost predominantly girls. And I'm a type A, very athletic. My head's always running 100 miles an hour guy, and my 4 boys are the same way. So yeah, when it got to be 5 kids and 1 wife at home trying to do homeschooling, it was not really working out. So for the last 5 years, they've been in the local Catholic school system. And then, we still look at it as our primary purpose to be the educators. And so not just helping with homework, but pushing them, mentally on things like philosophy and science. And as a home, with a background in homeschooling, we're always teaching, you might say, or doing Q&A. We're driving down the highway in the van, and there's a nuclear power plant, and the kids want to know, well, how does that thing make electricity? So talking about fusion versus fission reaction, and what's an alpha particle, and with 5 kids, the questions are nonstop, so it keeps me busy either researching stuff or giving them my best guess.
No, that's good. That's really interesting. I have to commend you. 5 kids and homeschooling. I can't even imagine, or even 4 kids. I have 2 kids, and I just couldn't wait till they got back in school when we got out for COVID. We were out for 2 weeks for COVID, and it's hard to keep them, and they're 2 boys, and just trying to keep them disciplined is extremely hard. And so I can't even imagine. I got to give you lots of credit for that. It's amazing.
Yeah, it can be a challenge like anything, but I think the more kids you have, we my wife and I, we teach at the local diocese's natural family planning course and the pre-marriage course, and we joke that nobody can afford 1 kid, and so then when you have 2, the second one costs you half as much, and then by the time you reach a point there where actually they're free. So, and I think the grace that comes with them kind of is the same.
You have to get them. Yeah, you have to get them when they're on sale. You have to get them when they're on sale.
Right. Yeah. 2-for-1s. We don't have any twins.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the fear my wife has. If we have another one, that's when we'll have the twins, so then having twins at like 53, and that makes us, what would that make us, 71, I guess, when they turn 18. That might be more than I signed up for. I definitely want another baby, but I think if we found out we were having twins, I might be a little freaked out.
Or sextuplets.
Oh.
Let's get 6 kids. No, I remember when I turned 40, I called my husband. I said, what do you think? Maybe we should try for 1 more. Just what do you think? And he's like, no, we're good. I don't want to get a divorce. That's how we think. I know it sounds pathetic, but I always wanted a big family. I wanted 5 kids. And so we only have 2. So we feel like, so I felt like we could have more, but I think he had a good point though. I think he's right there. We do sort of lose our noodles sometimes because it's hard. I think it's hard raising kids.
Yeah, I joke that it's really a factor of the capacity of a minivan right now. So all 7 of us fit in 1 minivan. We don't have to take 2 vehicles anywhere. So, if we had another one before our 17-year-old moves out, then that would mean we'd either take 2 vehicles or we'd go to the stretch, the supersized long van with a trailer behind it. Looks like you're the local traveling baseball team or something.
Wow. So Nathan's going to have 15 kids, it says.
Yeah, you just buy a bus, one of those old yellow school buses. You just buy that.
Yeah, and Brenda, we're in the same zip code, probably, or maybe not zip code, but I'm in central Minnesota as well. I was born and raised over in South Dakota, but have been living here for the last, I guess, since 2003. So it slips in every once in a while, depending what I'm saying, but you can't. It isn't always there. But our schools here in central Minnesota, they are still open, although my wife was saying that most of the local public schools are going to full distance learning. There have been a couple of COVID outbreaks. Ours is going, straight. Everybody's in school. They're not even doing a blended model. They're there 5 days a week, but they've got they're trying to enforce some pretty rigid standards on washing the desks as you come into the room and washing hands, obviously, and everything else. But I'd be surprised if it goes more than another month, even in our school. It's just going to be a matter of time, probably. Same thing with the church. Our church is, we were closed through, I want to say about the middle of July, give or take. And actually the Archbishop down in St. Paul had a meeting with the governor basically to protest that the liquor stores are open, the restaurants were opening back up, and at least having a standard. If the standard is 6 feet or 50% of your fire code, then it should be just as safe to go to church for an hour as it is to go to a restaurant for an hour. Which all of those things are pragmatic decisions, or not pragmatic, prudential decisions about how much, but there should at least be some consistency to it. I'm probably one of the outsiders because I'm very conservative, but I'm also, with my science math brain, I realize that there's some things you can do that don't really cost you anything that can help make sure you're not spreading it to others. So kind of finding a balanced ground.
Yeah, and the virus doesn't care about what people believe about it. It doesn't care.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I can see when the liquor stores are open and the restaurants are open, people sit in restaurants without their masks on, of course, because they're eating. And so it's not the same as at church. You actually have your mask on the whole time. It's not like you're taking the mask off and singing. You, at least as far as I've known from what I understand. Yeah,
the only person singing is the cantor now. So there is no, organist is playing, obviously, like during distribution of the Eucharist, but beyond that, absolutely no singing. Although we're still reciting the Lord's Prayer, Apostles' Creed, and so forth. So you're still talking, but with the social distancing going on, every other pew is blocked off, so you can't go in there. So I haven't heard of any outbreaks in our church. I actually, a couple of weeks ago, we were holding interviews in my office, and 4 of us were in the same small office queue or office area for about 8 hours together. We were masked up and we were 6 feet apart, but 2 days later, one of those individuals got sick and tested positive. So the rest of us haven't come down with it, and we all got tested and tested negative. So whether the masks, I can't say 100% prevented it, but it was better than had we not been doing what we were supposed to do and then come back positive. So.
Yeah, my son tested positive a few weeks ago, and we just got out of quarantine. Our whole family had to go into quarantine, and the rest of us tested negative. And we just had he was a real champ. He was in his room. We didn't let him come out of his room except for to go to the bathroom. He had his own dedicated bathroom, and we put a table outside of his room and would just feed him food whenever he was hungry. We just put it on this table, and so and then we were washing our hands and trying to be just as diligent as possible.
But to be fair, SJ, that's probably how you should raise adolescent boys all the time, anyway.
Well, I'm going to get it. Don't wash their hands enough.
No, come on. These are good jokes. Come on.
Yeah.
What is it that they say? They say once a kid turns 13, you put them in a 55-gallon drum, and you cut a hole in the top, and you feed them through the hole until they turn 18, and then you seal the hole.
Yeah, right. My kids actually went with their, and I hate to say this because every time I say that my kids did something, because they did some fun stuff the weekend right before my one son got COVID, which we had a sleepover and everybody was heaping abuse on me like, oh, that's terrible, you did that. Well, now they went to Busch Gardens yesterday, and so far we're all okay, but they went with their friends for the very first time ever without us. And so I was missing them the whole time, and I could track them the whole time on my phone because I've got this really cool app that tracks my kids wherever they go. And so that was a lot of fun. So my husband and I were tracking them the whole time, but they didn't know it. So it's a good time. Well, listen, I think we might want to end the stream. I got to go downstairs and make some chicken. And so I wanted to thank all of you for coming on today and tonight for Nathan. I know, Nathan, your time zone's way ahead of ours. And so
I don't know what the time is. Yeah, it's not that late.
Not too late. So you're 10:48?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Cool. Very nice. So do you guys want to have some parting comments, closing comments, where people can find you or anything like that?
Yeah, I just wish Dr. Josh had stopped running. We've seen a little bit. We've seen a little bit of him trying to use excuses to get out of it. This kid that he pretends exists, but we never see. Keeps pulling him away from the screen. Yeah, I'm not saying the kid doesn't exist, but it'd be very easy to make something like that up. And then over on my channel, Digital Gnosis. If you want to go and check it out, then do. There you go.
It's interesting that the name of his channel was Nathan Ormond, and then he met Digital Hammurabi, and suddenly it's Digital Gnosis. I'll let you decide.
It is kind of a coincidence, I have to say. It's very good.
God.
So, Brenda, how about you?
Not much to say. I don't know what else to say.
Okay. Yeah. So you're on Twitter. You're pretty active there. If you want to find, what's your handle on Twitter again?
It's just Brenda Van Azen.
Okay.
Just
Oh,
my
that's
name.
right. That's right. Van Azen. Okay. Great.
Yeah. It's the German. It's a German name. It's German.
Very good. Very good. How about you, Dr. Josh?
Yeah, we're Digital Hammurabi. We have a website, digitalhammurabi.com. We've got all our links there, podcasts, and I don't know, videos, books, whatever. That's all in there. If you're interested in the ancient Near East and the Bible, I guess that's a place to go, maybe.
Sounds good. Very good.
That whatever these weird comments are, is V doing them, and she thinks she's so I don't even know what this means. The superior digit is mine. Is that like a?
V's got access to your account. I think that's hysterical. Oh, Digital Pine Tree. Are you gonna? He was Mini Pinecone for a little while there.
Pine Creek Junior. Yeah. Pine Tree.
Very good. How about you, Sol?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Sol Sokut. So first name and last name is Sukut, and I'm often retweeting stuff from podcasts from Thomistic Institute, Matt Fradd, Trent Horn, Catholic Answers, and those sorts of things. And I tweet a lot of fitness stuff as well, because that's kind of my second hobby, and then tabletop gaming stuff, Dungeons and Dragons, and so forth with my kids. So it's a broad spectrum. No art. That's my one thing I don't do. I'm not a painter or a songwriter or anything like that. But
no, that's neat. That sounds really neat. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Run, everybody. Oliver's screaming. Thank you for having me on yesterday.
Thank you. You have a good one.
See you guys. You too.
And Mr. Parker.
You can find me on Twitter at the Mr. Parker. You have to spell out Mr. And I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, basically. And that's about it.
Excellent. And so you're going to be going live in a little while, right?
Yeah, in like 2 hours.
Okay, so you guys look for that. And so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I'm going to say what Craig says. Mass is ended. Let us go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I'll put my Catholic hat on for that. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and end this.